After driving in vehicle mode for over 10 hours and using the warship for several hours, he had already consumed more than half of his energy. That small stone contained such immense energy. If he could get his hands on it, he wouldn't have to worry about energy for the warship for a while, nor would he need to waste precious energy points to recharge it. He had to have that stone. Wang Cheng's warship instantly turned and accelerated, heading straight for the white-haired man on the ground and the fierce awakened woman who had just obtained the irregular energy crystal. Chapter 86. No matter who you are. The sky was filled with a blood-red hue, casting a dark and oppressive atmosphere. Outside the clothing store, chaos reigned. The rioters had been scattered by Wang Cheng's gunfire, leaving a scene of devastation with few still standing. The white-haired man had one of his legs shot off by Wang Cheng's mounted rifle and was kicked by the fierce woman, writhing on the ground in agony, yet still fixated on his meteorite. As he saw the woman pulling out the stone and attempting to escape, he struggled forward, futilely reaching out. But at that moment, a vehicle came from behind, its heavy body crushing him. The thug coughed up blood and lay still. Perhaps, for ordinary survivors, or even weak awakeners like middle-aged men, the white-haired individuals are the most ruthless among the ruthless, an insurmountable barrier. However, in the face of violence at a higher level, they are nothing more than insignificant beings. Failing to grasp the situation leads to dire consequences. The vehicle of Wang Cheng is rapidly pursuing ahead. His warship accelerates quickly, and from the lowered window, he calls out, "Miss, what you're doing is a bit unethical. This group wants to kill me, and I'm taking them out. You're just trying to benefit from the chaos?" The short-haired woman, agile in form, has already jumped onto the roof of a scrapped SUV to one side. She turns her head to look at Wang Cheng and his vehicle, her gaze briefly resting on the mounted rifle. It must be said that her figure is exceptional, and her features are quite striking. Standing on the car roof with that commanding presence, she could easily captivate anyone's attention. Wang Cheng, however, remains unfazed, expressionless as he raises his dual rocket launcher in a show of force. "If you don't hand over the item obediently, I'll blow you up." This irregular energy crystal is something Wang Cheng must have. With it, the energy consumption issue for the journey to Fengtian, which has been a constant worry for him, would be resolved. Yet, the woman seems to realize her disadvantage. After a moment of silence, seeing Wang Cheng's threat, she says, "This thing is useless in your hands. I'm military personnel. If you give it to me, it can be utilized to its greater potential." Wang Cheng can tell she is military just by her uniform. "And how do you know it won't be useful in my hands? Perhaps I could make better use of it than the military." Wang Cheng immediately responds. He has always had a good impression of people like Zhao Nan, Li Xinqing, and Zhang Ruizhen from the military, so he refrains from firing for the time being. But the woman merely shakes her head and replies, "You can't have it. It can't be entrusted to you." Her tone leaves little room for negotiation. Wang Cheng furrows his brows, his tone growing colder. "What? You're robbing me and claim to have a reason not to give it back? What if I insist on taking it? Then you can try." At that moment, the woman leaps off the car roof, springing onto the roof of another vehicle 5 meters away, agile as a hunter in the jungle, moving swiftly through the suburban area. Wang Cheng's anger flares up. What is this? The people and items he has taken down are now being claimed as hers? Wang Cheng is not someone to be trifled with. He had been considerate due to people like Zhang Ruizhen. Since this woman refuses to reason, he decides not to hold back. "Let's see if my warship is faster or if you can run faster." With a slam on the accelerator, the black warship, shaped like a sedan, speeds out like a black lightning bolt, crashing through the vehicles blocking the way ahead as he pursues the woman aggressively. Although Wang Cheng showcased a dual-barreled rocket launcher, he had no intention of firing it. Firstly, the ammunition for the rocket launcher was precious. Secondly, its destructive power was immense. Wang Cheng was genuinely worried that a single shot might obliterate that woman along with his precious energy crystal, rendering all his efforts futile. As he watched the chase unfold, the middle-aged man on the ground wore a face of despair, his expression a complex mix of sadness. In his 40s, he appeared as lost and hopeless as a child. Suddenly, he turned to see the white-haired figure and began to laugh and cry simultaneously, raising his hands to frantically beat the unmoving body of the white-haired person until it was unrecognizable. This was the only thing he dared to do. Meanwhile, Wang Cheng had already begun speeding through the city. With nitrogen boosting the acceleration and the engine roaring, he tightly pursued the woman ahead. Su Ling could not help but grip the armrest, her gaze fixed on the striking figure in front of her, her brows furrowed. Since she first laid eyes on the woman, she had remained silent until now, suddenly exclaiming, "Wait, Wang Cheng, that person looks somewhat familiar. I finally remembered who she is." Wang Cheng was currently using his rifle to shoot at the woman who had attempted to hide in a building but had returned to the street instead. The woman was incredibly agile, seemingly full of energy, using the complex street layout and alleys to evade him, making it difficult for Wang Cheng to catch up directly. He immediately asked, "Who is she?" "She is Shubing," a prominent figure in the temporary survivor gathering point research institute and military in Haicheng, known as the First Awakened One. Wang Cheng's hand on the steering wheel paused slightly. This was the first time he had heard the name Shubing, but he had heard the titles associated with her countless times. Wu Haiqing and Zhang Chao had both mentioned that there was a key figure among the highly regarded Awakened Ones in Qinghai, who had undergone human experiments to stimulate the abilities of secondary Awakened Ones, and that person was Haiqing's First Awakened One. So it was this woman? No wonder her physical abilities were formidable, overshadowing most awakened individuals Wang Cheng had encountered. No wonder she was so arrogant. She indeed was someone of significance. However, Wang Cheng shook his head and said, "I don't care who she is. That thing belongs to me," and she took it directly. So she needs to return it to me obediently. As they continued the chase, the surrounding city streets grew increasingly desolate and silent, with hardly any figures in sight. Terrifying giant pits appeared on the ground, with soil turned over. The neatly constructed streets once made by humans were now shattered and unrecognizable, resembling vast fields after being plowed. This environment had little effect on Shubing ahead, but for Wang Cheng, who was driving on the uneven surface, it was far from friendly. The ground was riddled with deep, dark pits, causing Wang Cheng's vehicle to sway left and right as he struggled to keep up. At this moment, Shubing accelerated again, clearly hoping to use the advantageous terrain to shake off Wang Cheng and the others behind her. Her lips curled into a confident smile. The survivor was impressive, managing to chase this far. But this was the limit. These meteor fragments were treasures of the military and research institutions. Key research targets that absolutely could not be seized by these ordinary survivors. That would be a tremendous loss. However, she suddenly heard a sound behind her. As she turned around, she was stunned by the sight before her. The black sedan she confidently thought she could shake off had suddenly transformed into a fighter jet, taking off from the ground. The left tail was smoking, but its speed far exceeded that of a car, an exaggerated display. In an instant, it swept over the ravaged city streets, accompanied by a buzzing sound, and directly hovered above her head. Then, the hatch opened, and Wang Cheng leaped down, landing directly on top of her, using sheer force to pin her down on the roof of the car. "Ah!" Xu Bing let out a roar, struggling like a mother leopard. However, Wang Cheng was a second-tier evolved being. No matter how strong Xu Bing's overall combat power was, she was crushed and unable to move by Wang Cheng's sheer strength. Xu Bing never expected that the survivor in the car was such a powerful awakened being who could overpower her. She also never thought that a car could transform into a plane and come charging at her. At this moment, not only was Xu Bing dumbfounded, but even Su Ling was left speechless, as if in a dream. Xu Bing was well known in the survivor gathering point in Haicheng as the strongest awakened being, a precious existence. Yet now, she was pinned down by Wang Cheng, unable to break free despite her struggles. Su Ling's eyes quickly sparkled. With such power, who would believe him if he claimed he was not a second-tier awakened being? Wang Cheng was undoubtedly a true second-tier awakened being. Chapter 87. Level 5 Hunting Ground. The scene was extremely chaotic. Xu Bing struggled desperately, but no matter how hard she tried, Wang Cheng kept her firmly pressed to the ground. The overwhelming force made it impossible for her to escape. She widened her eyes, looking at Wang Cheng in disbelief, and at the suspended fighter jet behind him, saying, "This is impossible. How could your strength overpower me? You are definitely not an ordinary survivor. Such equipment cannot be owned by survivors. Let me go? Who on earth are you?" Wang Cheng took a deep breath and replied, "I am someone who had treasures stolen from me." He also felt it was a bit absurd. The beauty before him was indeed the infamous first awakened being rumored among the survivors in Haicheng, and most importantly, she was currently pinned down by him. It seemed she had not yet reached the level of a second-tier awakened being. After injecting the strength serum, not to mention anything else, his sheer strength had already reached the level of a second-tier awakened being, easily allowing him to overpower her. As the saying goes, brute force can break through any cleverness. No matter how capable Xu Bing was, she was instantly subdued by Wang Cheng. On the battleship behind them, Su Ling felt a mix of joy and complexity. She confirmed that Wang Cheng must be a second-tier awakened being, yet she was very worried about the current situation. Xu Bing also comes from a military background, and now she is being pressed down by Wang Cheng. How can this situation be salvaged? Moreover, this is Su Ling's first time experiencing Wang Cheng's warship mode. Hovering at low altitude, the dim operating interface inside the warship exudes a sense of groundbreaking technology. Su Ling, being knowledgeable, has never seen similar equipment or aircraft, especially this fighter jet, which has a glide takeoff design but can take off and land vertically. Hovering at low altitude, how is this possible? However, this scene did not last long. Wang Cheng restrained Xu Bing with one hand and directly took the irregular energy crystal from her hand with the other. The touch was somewhat cold. It looked like a stone, but it felt completely different in hand, more like a kind of jade, with a sensation as if some living creature was moving inside, making it particularly unique. Wang Cheng